Virnita Aryo Varam Atma Bandhanam Nakanmayenyam Tava Pada Sevanat Akinchana Partayatmat Varan Vivo Rajya Kastvam Hi Apavarga Damhare Vinita Aryo Varan Atma Bandhanam. Please chant. Nakanyame niyam havapada sevanat Akinchana partayatmad varan vibo Aradya kasvam hi apavargatam hare Vinita aryo varam atma bandhanam Nakanmaye nyatavapada sevanat Akinchana partayatamat varan vibo Aradya svam hi apavargatam hare Vinita anyo varam atma bandhanam. The word for word, nakamaye. I do not desire. Anyam, another. Tava, your. Pada, of the feet. Sevanat, then the service. Akinchana, by those who want nothing material. Pratyaye, tamat, which is the favorite object of entreaty. Karam, boon, Vibho, O powerful one. Aradhya, worshipping. Ra, who. Tvam, you. He, indeed. Apavarga, of liberation. Dam, the bestower. Hare, O Lord Hari. Virnita, would choose. Arya, a spiritually advanced person. Karam, boon. Atma, his own. Bandhanam, cause of bondage. So the translation for text 55 is as follows. O all-powerful one, I desire no boon other than service to your lotus feet, the boon most eagerly sought by those free of material desire. O Hari, what enlightened person who worships you, the giver of liberation, would choose a boon that causes his own bondage? Purport. The Lord offered Muchukunda anything he desired, but Muchukunda desired only the Lord. This is pure Krishna consciousness. And then text 56. Tasmad Vishrijasa sa isha sarvato rajasthama sattva gunan bandhanam niranjanam nirgunam advayam param Tvam gnapti matram purusham brajami aham. And the translation for text 56. This is, of course, all Lord Muchukunda, King Muchukunda speaking. Therefore, O Lord, having put aside all objects of material desire, which are bound to the modes of passion, ignorance, and goodness, I'm approaching you, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, for shelter. You are not covered by mundane designations. Rather, you are the Supreme Absolute Truth, full in pure knowledge and transcendental to the material modes. And the purport. This is BBT purport. The word nirgunam here indicates that the Lord's existence is beyond the qualities of material nature. One might argue that Lord Krishna's body is made of material nature, but here the word Advayam refutes that argument. There is no duality in Lord Krishna's existence. His eternal spiritual body is Krishna, and Krishna is God. Om Jnanatimirandasya Gananjana Shlakaya Chakshurin Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manopistam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Uta Padakamalam Shri Guru Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Ragutam Vitam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijna Saitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishaka Vitamsha Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dina Bando Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gorangi Radhe Vrindavan Ishvari Vishabhanu Sute Devi Paramami Hari Priye Vanchakalpa Tarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Vacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnebhyo Namo Namaha Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prastaya Bhutale Srimati Rama Padaswami Iti Namine Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prastaya Bhutale Srimati Bhakti Vedanta Swami Iti Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Navishesha Sunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Good morning. I see a visitor. Thank you. Very nice that you're attending the class. So I'm going to draw on a commentary by Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, a commentary in relation to these two verses, and I'm going to put a focus on the first verse, so I'll just read it again to refresh. O all-powerful one, I desire no boon other than service to your lotus feet, the boon most eagerly sought by those free of material desire. O Hari, what enlightened person who worships you, the giver of liberation, would choose a boon that causes his own bondage? So in his commentary, Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, he notes that in this particular verse, King Muchukunda replies to Krishna's offer to accept a benediction. So quite a little way back, there was the offer that Krishna made to King Muchukunda was as follows. These are the words of Krishna. Now choose some benediction from me, O saintly king. I will fulfill all your desires. One who has satisfied me need never again lament. So those were the words of Lord Krishna, and he's making an offer to King Muchukunda. And this offer to King Muchukunda has within it also the reassurance that he's giving to his devotee. So the thought that Lord Krishna is expressing is, the person who has satisfied me, meaning Krishna is talking, does not have to lament. So immediately one thinks of benedictions that are given by others, because that's the implication. Others give benedictions that are perishable. And therefore, the benefactor who's receiving benedictions that are perishable, the benedictor laments when the boon disappears. So it's the same thing. We're very accustomed in our material functioning that we buy a particular product and it's got a lifespan. So if it's an electronic, it's got a lifespan maybe of 7 years, 10 years maybe. If one buys an article of clothing, it has a lifespan, depending on the quality, 7 years, maybe 20 years. So everything has a lifespan. So it's not exactly a boon, but at least there's something that one gets that is giving pleasure and that one's going to use and is somehow boosting one's comfort level. So a benediction given by Krishna, somebody who surrenders to him, is imperishable. So quite different. And therefore, the person receiving that benediction doesn't have to lament, doesn't have to go through that sadness, oh, something's come to an end. So you have that period of time where everything's wonderful thanks to receiving some sort of benediction, and then it ends. So in Krishna's case, there's not such thing as unending any boon that he gives. And the boon given by Lord Krishna, he implies, does not leave a person feeling incomplete or feeling that one has lost something due to receiving the benefit of a blessing, because it doesn't have this problem of finite time. It means it's not going to deteriorate into nothing. So that's the difference of a boon coming from Lord Krishna. It doesn't have that component. It's infinite, imperishable. It doesn't deteriorate. So quite extraordinary. And Srila Vishwanath has the following, his wording of how King Muchukunda is reasoning. So these are King Muchukunda's thoughts, as per Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur. Those who want nothing material, and that the word that was used was akinchana, they pray for bhakti. But more worthy of prayer is prema, and the most worthy of prayer is the service of your lotus feet. So that would be the reasoning of King Muchukunda. Thus, I do not want liberation. What to speak of any other boon? So immediately, just by hearing the words of King Muchukunda, one thinks of Lord Chaitanya. Because there's the prayer of Lord Chaitanya, which illustrates the praying for bhakti, as opposed to praying for something material. So this is the prayer of Lord Chaitanya. O Lord of the universe, I do not desire material wealth, materialistic followers, a beautiful wife, or fruitive activities described in flowery language. All I want, life after life, is unmotivated devotional service unto you. So that's shloka 4 from Sri Shikshastakam. And that's Dhanam na janam sundarim, kavitam na jagadisha kamaye, mama janmani jamanishvare, bhavat bhaktir ahaitu kitvayi. So in analyzing Lord Chaitanya's prayer, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, he notes these things. Dhanam refers to wealth, and jana means wife, children, relatives. So in effect, Lord Chaitanya makes the statement, and this is Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, I do not merely abhor sense gratification, which comes through religiosity, wealth, and lust, but I'm appalled at the idea of temporary mukti or liberation from the cycle of birth and death. So, I mean, what elevated thinking. So I refuse to be enticed by these 4 Vedic goals of Dharma, Artha, Kama, and Moksha. So, but I want only to render service at your lotus feet. So it's a mood of great surrender. And Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, when he's commenting on Lord Chaitanya's prayer, where, it's put so graphically, this praying only for bhakti, he brings up another prayer that's made by King Kulashekar, which has a very similar mood, this mood of only wanting bhakti. So one can use religiosity to actually attain material wealth. One can use religiosity to satisfy one's senses. One can use religiosity, satisfy one's senses in terms of, expanding one's family life. Or one can use religiosity even to get free from the cycle of birth and death. But the prayer of King Muchukunda, the prayer of Lord Chaitanya, now King Kulakshekar, which is something that Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur also uses in this context to illustrate this praying for bhakti. So here's King Kulashekar's prayer. O my Supreme Lord, I do not want to accumulate heaps of piety by performing sacrifices and executing prescribed duties as recommended in the scriptures, nor do I want great opulence and sense gratification. Whatever reactions I am destined to suffer for my past misdeeds, let them come. What I cherish is the hope that my deep devotion to your lotus feet may remain undeviating in its firmness, birth after birth. So, extraordinary mood that's expressed because there's that inbuilt thing that, I'm willing to even suffer whatever's supposed to come my way because of past misdeeds, let them come. But what I want to remain firm is in this undeviating firmness of devotion to your lotus feet. So, so these are King Muchukunda, Lord Chaitanya, King Kulakshekar, all having this mood and sense of deep devotion and praying for that firmness in devotion to the lotus feet of Lord Krishna. So we can look at the boons that, because earlier on I'd mentioned there's a difference between the boons, a boon that comes from Lord Krishna being imperishable, and then boons that come from others. So persons who follow Vedic religiosity, they worship the sun god. One who desires wealth worships Lord Ganesh. Those craving carnal pleasures worship Durga. And those who strive for liberation worship Lord Shiva. Those who worship Lord Vishnu, knowing him to be the source of the Vedas, do so for material motives. So these are all persons that are looking for particular boons that are more of a material nature. So this type of worship is known as Panchipasana, or worship of the 5 primary demigods. And Srila Bhaktisiddhanta, he states that whether such ritualistic so-called followers of the Vedas worship with or without material desires, they are in fact worshipping impersonal Brahman. So very interesting. There's this missing focus. Because the focus is on fulfillment of material desires, they're still worshipping, but they're worshipping impersonal Brahman. This is Srila Bhaktisiddhanta's analysis. So to worship Lord Vishnu properly and purely, one must render unmotivated devotional service to him. So that's going beyond, just being impersonal Brahman. So there are persons worshipping Lord Vishnu, but with material motives. So a moving to a worship without any material activities means that one is worshipping the Lord with the consciousness that everything is done for him. Means that all the activities one performs are actually devoted to Lord Krishna. So this form of worship is described by Lord Krishna, meaning that any activity you're performing, it's actually done with a desire that it's actually for the pleasure of Lord Krishna. And this is how Krishna puts it in Bhagavad Gita 12:2. Those who fix their minds on my personal form and are always engaged in worshipping me with great and transcendental faith are considered by me to be the most perfect. So that's Krishna's opinion, that persons worshipping in this kind of way, fixing all their attention on him in their activities, that he considers them to be perfect. So going back to King Muchukunda, he asks a rhetorical question. And this is Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur. What discriminating person would choose some ordinary material benediction leading to his own bondage, even if you were willing to grant it? I, however, am not interested even in liberation. So why would I choose such a thing? It's a rhetorical question. So King Muchukunda understands the problem with performing some sort of worship that has a material motive or a material desire, or is looking for fulfillment of desire in different categories, be it carnal desires, be it wealth desires. So generally, and this is Srila Prabhupada, and I'm drawing from the first canto, 7th chapter, 11th verse. He writes, this is Srila Prabhupada, generally, the liberated souls are attached to the feature of impersonal Brahman with a monistic view of becoming one with the supreme whole. So this is liberation. This is what King Muchukunda is not looking for. And Srila Prabhupada says that such liberated persons, they're attached to this feature of the impersonal Brahman. Of course, you do get persons attached to the impersonal Brahman that aren't liberated. I get exposed to, particularly in Western culture, where persons it's a more impersonal culture. Even Christianity, it's pretty impersonal. So being attached to the impersonal Brahman is not exclusively liberated souls. It can even be just a cultural thing. So by the association of pure devotees, this is Srila Prabhupada writing, even a liberated soul becomes attracted to the Lord, to the personal feature of the Lord. So there's a second meaning that Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur gives with King Muchukunda's saying, even one who worships you to get liberation, if he's intelligent, would he accept your boons which create bondage in this world again? What to speak then of your devotee? So King Muchukunda is quite clear. He's not looking for a boon that will augment his being in this material world, because he realizes that actually it's a form of bondage, because it actually traps you further in the material world. If you get a material boon that augments, makes your life more comfortable, brings some happiness, it then keeps you in the material world. So he sees it, he understands it actually as a form of bondage. It's actually trapping you. So he's saying, why would somebody who's intelligent accept such a boon? And of course, he's speaking to Lord Krishna. Even if Lord Krishna were giving him such a boon, why would he take that if that was being given? So Srila Prabhupada writes, this is Srila Prabhupada, and Srila Sukadev Goswami, who's speaking in Srimad Bhagavatam, he was thrown from the impersonal conception of the Absolute, thinking within himself that he had simply wasted so much time to devoting himself to the impersonal feature of the Supreme. Or in other words, he realized more transcendental bliss with the personal feature than with the impersonal feature. So Srila Prabhupada reveals this particular thing. Srila Sukadev Goswami had started in this position of actually liking the impersonal feature of the Supreme Lord, but he actually came to understand there was much more transcendental bliss in the personal feature. And from that time on, not only did he become very dear to the Vishnu Janas, or the devotees of the Lord, but also the Vishnu Janas became very dear to him. So that's Srila Prabhupada mentioning that fact about Srila Sukadev Goswami, who's speaking in Srimad Bhagavatam. So Srila Prabhupada carries on, the devotees of the Lord who do not wish to kill the individuality of the living entities and who desire to become personal servitors of the Lord are not very much like the impersonalists. Let me see my English here. They do not like the impersonalists very much. And similarly, the impersonalists who desire to become one with the Supreme are unable to evaluate the devotees of the Lord. So the two camps are separate. The impersonalists can't really, the word used by Srila Prabhupada is evaluate. They can't really make out the personal devotees of the Lord, or the devotees who look for the personal feature of the Lord. And similarly, the devotees of the Lord kind of steer clear of the impersonalists, because the realizations are very different. So Srila Prabhupada says, so from time immemorial, these two transcendental pilgrims, because they're both transcendentalists, have sometimes been competitors. This is how Srila Prabhupada puts it. In other words, each of them likes to keep separate from the other because of the ultimate personal and impersonal realizations. That's Srila Prabhupada's comment. So I'm bringing this out because King Muchukunda was very clear that he didn't want anything to do with receiving some sort of boon that would have even allowed for liberation, which is the highest benediction one could get. And it's because a personless devotee of the Lord wishing to serve the Lord steers clear of anything impersonal. It's kind of the two camps are very separate. So finally, King Muchukunda makes it clear, and this is text 36, that he himself, he's got no desire for anything material. And this is how he puts it. I do not want, and that the word that was used was sarvata, any of the fruits connected with the modes of passion, ignorance, and goodness. I reject even liberation, which is mixed up with the mode of goodness, because it is based on knowledge. I pray only for the service of your lotus feet, which is transcendental to all the modes. And Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, he's adding a part here to what King Muchukunda is saying. He says, it is said in the 11th chapter of Bhagavad Gita that devotional service is beyond the modes. Therefore, I'm approaching you, the Supreme Person. And Arjuna says, going to Bhagavad Gita, since Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur is referencing the 11th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, Arjuna says this, you are the original personality of Godhead, the oldest, the ultimate sanctuary of this manifested cosmic world. You are the knower of everything, and you are all that is knowable. You are the supreme refuge above the material modes, O limitless form. This whole cosmic manifestation is pervaded by you. So that was Arjuna's statement, and it's interesting because King Muchukunda, according to Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, is actually referencing this 11th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, just to point out that devotional service is beyond the modes. So sorry, this class is very philosophical, but it's the nature of these two verses. Srila Prabhupada comments that everything rests in the Supreme Lord, including the Brahman effulgence. So that's the impersonal feature of the Lord. It actually rests within the Lord. And he's the end of knowledge. So even though the impersoners, wrangle with concepts and really try to refine their knowledge, Krishna, the personal form, is the end of knowledge. Therefore, he is known and is knowable. So meaning he's a person. He's knowable and he can be known. He's the object of knowledge because he is all-pervading. He is transcendental. He's also the chief personality in the transcendental world. That's how Srila Prabhupada puts it. So Muchukunda finally answers a question posed by Krishna. Then what is the real identity of my body? Krishna asked that question of Muchukunda according to Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur. And Muchukunda's answer is, it is made of pure knowledge, or Svarup, Jnana, and then my computer changed something. So that is the final point that King Muchukunda comes to in these verses, understanding that Krishna's body is made of pure knowledge and he's the one who's to be known and is knowable. So I may not have been able to fully tackle this because it's a little bit complex, but this is what I was able to extract from these two verses. If there's any thought on this rather philosophical subject matter.
Actually, it was a very nice class. Thank you.
Oh, it's very kind of you to say that. It's very broad subject matter.
Well, we see also Krishna offer benedictions. Like he says, he reciprocates accordingly to how we surrender to him. And I can recall one benediction that is given in the Bhagavad Gita, that is in the part of the Karma Kanda section of the Bhagavad Gita. Krishna is explained in the 3rd chapter. But even within that benediction, embedded is the ultimate benediction, which is becoming free from the material, material entanglement, to become liberated. And, throughout this first section of the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna explains, that the liberation that he's talking about is a liberation of someone fully understanding him, his divine nature. In the 3rd chapter, Krishna says, in the beginning of the creation, the Lord of all creation said to all, both man and demigod, be thou happy by this sacrifice, yajna, because by his performance, one will obtain everything that is desired in this world and also liberation. So not only a benediction for all the material desirable things to live, a happy life in this material world, but also the means for liberation, which is the process of yajna. And this is right after Krishna tells that yajna must be performed for my pleasure. He's a yajna artha, enjoyer. So embedded in that is that benediction. But coming to the point that you made, that when Krishna gives benedictions, people won't, there's no lamentation. The verse said, Krishna, there's no lamentation in his benedictions. So, and you highlighted the point that these benedictions, that one receives of material nature, they're limited. They have, a time shelf. But Krishna does give those too. But in one sense, embedded in that, I'm just comment, embedded in that is the means to actually become free from that. So at the end, even when things ended, the devotee has the tools and the capacity to overcome hankering and lamentation, which is, that Brahma Buddha stage that one elevates himself. So just adding to that.
Oh, that's a wonderful contribution. Thank you very, very much. Yeah, the mention was made by Srila Bhaktisiddhanta that persons can be worshipping Lord Vishnu with material motives, and their understanding that Lord Vishnu is the source of all the Vedas. So it seems that there would be a connection on a very personal level, but with material motives, it's still actually worshipping an impersonal aspect of Krishna. So you're bringing up the point that that personal connection can be made through sacrifice, which Krishna is clearly stating, as you said in the 3rd chapter, is interesting because the sacrifice is one, so much of consciousness and attitude and mood. It's because one can actually perform sacrifice that is giving something of one's hard-earned labor, or so the sacrifice that on a much more subtle level is that sacrifice to Lord Krishna, because the sacrifice that's been made is a shift in consciousness, where one is shifting the focus from oneself and what one will gain oneself to actually thinking merely what one can do for the Supreme Lord. So it's quite a shift in consciousness. So that's actually the sacrifice. It's a shift in consciousness. So I'm just analyzing a little bit, thinking, because so much of the analysis of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta in looking at those sacrifices, or I don't know, in a sense, sacrifice, because sacrifice has to be performed to receive a material benediction. They're actually cut off from the personal aspect of Lord Krishna. It's very impersonal. So what makes it personal is the shifting of consciousness. So the sacrifice is different. It's on a very subtle level, because externally one may go through sacrifice, giving time, money, whatever it is, but it's a shifting consciousness. So that's a thought, just adding to that fantastic contribution. Thank you.
Thank you for your class, Mataji. I missed a lot of that because I was thinking about something. I have to review it on the YouTube, because what it was
One
like.
has those moments, yes.
Yeah, because I was thinking about Hanuman and the boons that Hanuman received and how they were used to assist the Lord. And I think King Muchukunda, right? Okay, so he was very humble in his speech. I think there are other instances where the humility is actually to speak of one's power, like the case with Hanuman. At least the boons that he received from the sun god and these different, they were used to help the Lord in his Leela. So I think my thought is that how one has to be totally honest and with their own personality and their own situation with the Lord, and not try to imitate other persons and other souls, and be honest when it comes to just life in general, because it's so variegated and so dynamic. But I was wondering what you might think about that, like the boons that Hanuman had. He could fly, he could expand, be larger. I think he had some other ones too. But his consciousness, when he was given the pearls, he said, "I don't see the Lord." Basically a way to use the pearls, even though the Lord was inside the pearls, because every atom is Lord Vishnu is inside the atoms. But he didn't see a way that he could use those pearls, but he could use his boons. So I was wondering if you could maybe.
Yeah, it's what's in the heart emerges when one comes in contact with a pure devotee. That's what Srila Bhaktisiddhanta said. And in the case of Hanuman, what's in the heart came out with his contact with Lord Ramachandra, the Supreme Personality of God in himself. And King Muchukunda is like that too. He has Lord Krishna right in front of him. So precisely what's in his heart is now coming out. So the King Muchukunda is revealing his knowledge. So that's his humility. He's revealing his knowledge. And he had a desire to see Lord Krishna. It had been predicted that he would. And he went to sleep after all his battling, thinking of that desire. Oh, it's going to be so many yugas before I get to see Lord Krishna. Let me go and sleep. So actually he went to sleep with that desire that he's going to, at one point, see Lord Krishna, and the time would go more quickly if he was resting. So his focus was still, one day he's going to see Lord Krishna. So he sees Lord Krishna, and what emerges is what's in his heart. All that knowledge, where he says, what's the use? I don't want a liberation, which is, the highest material boon, because it's going to keep me trapped in this world. All I want is service at your lotus feet, because that's what I want to stay firm in. The other things, it comes and goes, short duration. I just want that continuous connection. And And Hanuman, his heroism emerged in contact with Lord Ramachandra. So his great devotion and his ability to just use, even he'd forgotten he had these powers, but emerged in his desire to perform sacrifice to Lord Ramachandra. So then what was in the heart came out. And that's what Srila Bhaktisiddhanta teaches. You come in contact with the pure devotee or the Lord himself, then what's there emerges. And the shift in consciousness happens. And maybe there wasn't a shift for King Mujukunda or Hanuman because they already were of that consciousness, but it comes out through the speech or the actions. Yeah. Well, thank you very much for your very kind attention. Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai.